Hello, brothers and sisters. So sorry. I'm going to continue on with the side 2 of Herb Fitch, the Father which seeth in secret. I'm going to back up just a little bit here, and it takes us right into, and when we pray, enter into your closet. But it also says to keep the door shut. When you enter your closet, the door of your consciousness must be shut to this world. Now, this is the path to resurrection, and it has nothing to do with worshiping a man or a resurrected God. And the paradox of the Son of God being crucified becomes so clear. Each of us is the Son of God. The only crucifixion is now a painless one. The crucifixion of the sense of a physical world. Some of us are not ready for that. Some of us doubt our capacity to attain that. But all we are really doubting is that we are truly the offspring of Spirit. You see, Spirit doesn't have to attain anything. The one who is so uncertain of attainment is the one who is still clinging to the belief that I am a human that has to attain. So you have more work to do in your closet, in which you close that human sense of life and rest in the acceptance of the presence of God. God hasn't anything to attain. God doesn't have to become Christed. God doesn't have to defend it against the evils of the world. And in your closet, in your new developed consciousness, you'll find you do not have to defend against the evils of this world. You're being led in an underground of the Spirit, where the only power that exists is the grace of that Spirit. Where you do not attain, where you do not fast, where you do not do alms, where you do not pray, where you do not repeat the errors of centuries, of a world that seeks a God in a heaven above, where you do not make the mistake of all religions who pray to a concept which they call God, and wonder why this concept doesn't respond. Where you do not make the mistake of science, who makes an exhaustive study of the world of images, which it calls the material world. We're moving out of the realm of religion that is not religious, science that is unscientific, into a little closet of consciousness, which opens out upon the infinite perfection of God. The Christ, which stood where Jesus appeared, sat upon a ship, and because the Christ does not live in time or in space, there was no consciousness of limited time or limited space to limit that ship, and so instantly the ship was on the shore. The Christ, which stood where Jesus appeared to be, had no concept of lack. It had no consciousness of limitation. And because of the absence of a human mind, loaves and fishes could be multiplied instantly. Do you see what we're driving at? It wasn't the presence of Jesus which did the miracles. It was the absence of Jesus. That is the lesson. The absence of Jesus is the presence of Christ, and it doeth the works. Why callest thou me, Jesus, good? There is no me, Jesus, here. The Father within, he doeth the works. The Christ that I have attained by dropping the sense of Jesus that doeth the works. And you see, it is going to be something very difficult for you to accept, but it will be the absence of you which doeth the work. Not the presence of you, but the absence of you. In the absence of your false sense of self, the Christ doeth the works. When you take away a human Jesus, you have lost the message, because all you have got left then is God creating a divine Son, doing miracles through that divine Son. And where are you? But when you take out the false glorification, the false deification, when you take out all the political movers that established a formula and see facts as they are, that a human self was able to come through this bubble of matter and overcome the illusion of it and say, now that I have shown you the way, follow me. Then if you're willing to look and see the absence of that human self, thence the presence of the invisible self, then you come to yourself and say, then the absence of the human me is the presence of the invisible spirit. And that is the true resurrection. That's what all these words in the Bible are leading to. The absence of the you is the presence of your Christ self. Deny thyself means the absence of your physical sense of being. The absence of it produces the absence of your physical sense of the world. And that is the renting of the veil. The veil is rent the moment you have caught a glimpse of your undimensional self, which is independent of physical form, which is independent of time and place and space. And as this touches your consciousness, this moves throughout the universe. You become open to that new order of life, which has been ever present, awaiting your discovery. This is to be a resurrected universe with a consciousness that knows nothing of killing, nothing of hate, nothing of lack, nothing of limitation, but a consciousness of perfect reality, not peopled by human beings, inhabited by the living Christ, the individualized as each of us, the resurrected self, that the purpose of the march to resurrection to remove mirage. As a little child, you develop certain capacities, certain senses. As a spiritual child, you develop new capacities, a new awareness. As a mature spirit, a mature spiritual adult, you walk in a different universe than the one you walked in yesterday. You walk in the resurrected universe, the new universe, that now is out picturing your new consciousness, where bombs cannot fall, where bullets cannot explode, where there is no pain and no tears. If all this is untrue, then there was no point in the demonstration of Jesus and the teaching of the Christ to those disciples. There was no point in Peter kneeling at the temple gate beautiful. There was no point in Paul moving through the world indifferent to personal pain. There was no point in an infinite way. There was no point in Buddha or Krishna. There was no point in any of the great spiritual seers on this earth, if this is untrue. For each was a light revealing the same truth, that there is one power on the earth, and it is the power of love. And it is not dependent upon what man does or doesn't do. It is functioning independent of man right now, and it is present, and it is maintaining its perfect universe of love all around us, which can be experienced only in your spiritual self. And so we do not pray as men pray. We do not fast as men fast. We do not give alms as men give alms. We retire into the center of our being, fasting from the world that is not, until we experience the universe that is. And we are in and of that which is the resurrection. And we are still walking in the appearance of flesh. We're not waiting for a physical crucifixion to crucify that which does not exist. We learn to walk in spiritual flesh, and then your Father, which knoweth in secret, becomes the very law of your complete being. One Father, one universal Father, one universal spiritual being. Not one universal spiritual being and anything else. Just one universal spiritual being. Not one being supreme above others, but one supreme self is all there is. One infinite spiritual universe. Not to be attained in the future, but to be realized as ever present now. Fortunately, we still have about 6 more chapters in this book to strengthen our awareness about that infinite invisible universe all around us. And in that period of study, our concentration should be on that self which is not confined to this form. For when the resurrection of Jesus took place, and the Christ stood where Jesus had been, there no longer was confinement to the form which men saw. All this was told very eloquently in the Transfiguration. This was nothing more than a revelation of what had occurred in resurrection through the Transfiguration, which the disciples did not quite understand. They were permitted to see that the resurrected Christ stood there and not Jesus. Do you think that resurrected Christ has gone anywhere? Do you think the Christ was actually resurrected? Do you not see that the false sense of self dropped away, and Christ, which was ever present, was self-revealed? Where is that Christ? Right where it ever was. Here, right where you stand. If by some magic of the human mind it could drop away, you would witness the Transfiguration right here, right now, in which you, the Christ invisible, stand where the form appears to be. And this would be the truth revealing itself. And this will be the truth revealing itself to the degree that we learn to fast from the senses, to accept the oneness of the universe in spirit, the brotherhood of all in spirit, and refrain from pampering the human sense of things, but become instead as a child, a new spiritual child ready to walk and to stumble no matter how often you have to pick yourself up, until that glorious moment of certainty when I need do nothing of myself, in the recognition that Christ is ever flowing. As we move ahead in these chapters, I'd like to bring the parables into them to show you the spiritual authority of the Christ, not only in every word of the sermon, but the consistency with which the Christ dramatized the sermon, and the consistency with which Joel, being the living Christ, was able to put the complete Christ consciousness before our eyes, revealing truth. All one message about the one infinite self. For those of you who are still anticipating troubles in meditation, we might end with the realization that Christ never has a problem meditating. What we call meditation is a normal way of breathing to Christ. And if we are unable to pierce the veil of human thought long enough to receive the impulse, the barrier is generally an inability to accept that Christ is all. When you work from that attitude and altitude, that Christ is all, and there is no me here to meditate, it will be like the prodigal, who, the moment he turned home, found the Father coming toward him. When you are willing to accept in consciousness that Christ being all, any human thought on your part is a denial of Christ, then you realize the barrier to the silence is your denial of Christ. You are denying Christ when you are unable to be silent. And you are further making a confession that your mind controls you, and you do not control your mind. Just think, if you cannot control your mind, how that mind must be open to world thought. If I cannot control my mind, the world can do anything to my mind, and I have no way of defense. I must learn to control my mind. I must learn to control that mind in every conceivable way, or else the world will control it. There's no greater horror than leaving your mind exposed to this world. You must learn to control it. You must sit with it, hours upon hours, time after time, until it takes its orders from your consciousness. The penalty of not being able to control that mind, is to be subject to all the laws of karma of this world. You might just as well surrender your mind to this world as take a child and turn it out and put it in a den of thieves. Now, the effort that you then put in to take that mind and dominate it, which seems so strong at first, becomes easier when you finally learn that the mind is mirage. When you start to analyze it, you find it's not even a mind. It's just a lot of opinions that have been pushed together through the centuries, standing there in one lump, calling itself your mind. It's a lot of sensations. It reacts to good and it reacts to evil, and it is good and it is going to keep reacting until it is a higher consciousness than preventing it from reacting. And that higher consciousness is looking to the hills of the soul. It's turning away from this mind It's awakening from the hypnosis of this mind. It refuses to compromise God to this mind. It refuses to let a personal sense of me obstruct my path to perfection. Now we're silent, and you throw open the throttle so that you're not in that mind. You're coasting in neutral. You're not in any particular mind. You're able to be just wide open with no thought. Neither divine nor human, just no thought. There is a place where you find you can rest in a state of neither divine nor human thought. You locate it, and it's a very big place. It's just a state of nothingness. There are no people there. There are no things there. It's just a vastness. Nothing delineates. No ideas come. It's all a vacuum. Now, if you want to take thought, you may, but make sure your thought is about the Spirit. What did John mean when he said, "If you love the world, the love of God is not in you"? Well, he was telling me not to love the mirage, not to be fooled by the appearances, not to go chasing after a handful of atoms. All right, I won't do it. Then the love of God is in me, and suddenly, like the wings of an eagle, I can soar. Where is this I that comes into the vacuum? That's the eagle. I don't have to do anything. All I have to do is provide the vacuum. And now turn your thought to God. That's so simple. Turn your thought to the perfect action of God. The perfect creation, the perfect spiritual universe. You still have no forms. You have ideas about harmony, about truth, about the nowness of spirit, the nowness of God, the nowness of being, about the fact that immortality is ever present. Nothing is mortal. All is immortal. You're beginning to find that the vacuum is filled by thought. As you quietly contemplate, though you're not aware of it while you're doing this, you're simply being taken out of the senses. You're not hearing sounds of the world or seeing sights of the world or thinking thoughts of the world. You're fasting. You're in the Sabbath. One meditation like this is a deepening process. If I have 10 of these a day, that makes 3,500 a year. I've been meditating this way for only 7 years, but it's still about 30,000 meditations. And in that length of time, you must learn something about how to meditate. You must drop the human mind and fall into the vacuum and be lifted by the Spirit quite a number of times. It's really like anything else. It requires your constant fidelity to doing it. And then you find it isn't a practice reserved for anybody who is particularly gifted at all. The capacity depends on your use of it, your willingness to give your time to it. And then you can travel pretty well in the vacuum, contemplating or not, and recognizing human thought, if it dares to show its head, and quickly dispensing with it. This is how you develop the Christ mind, the mind that was in Christ Jesus, the mind that revealed there is no evil on this earth. All resurrection begins in the transformation from the mind of the man of earth to the silent mind, which ultimately attains the realization of the Christ mind. Resurrection is the transformation of the mind. First, we are generated into form, and then by the transformation of the mind, we are regenerated into Christ. You notice how we are not seeking anything? We are not asking for anything. We're not asking God to do something or change something. We're just in the river of Spirit, and let it do its work as it pleases, through you, and through all that concerns you throughout the infinite Spirit. You will learn to depend on the invisible grace as the source of all that is real. This is where you'll find the power of Spirit in action. As this deepens, love will touch you in a different way. Love will flow unimpeded by human thought, and love will fulfill divine law where you stand. The only people on this earth whom Jesus attacked were the Pharisees and the scribes, and only because they were the greatest obstacle to love in this world. His attack on them visibly was only for the record, so that we could see that all who are incapable of love are cutting themselves off from Spirit. Everywhere you look at the visible Jesus form, which was the invisible Christ, you see love in expression. That is the nature of every miracle, love. And when you are incapable of that love, in that measure you will find your problems begin to appear. Because unless that love is flowing through you, you're in humanhood and not divinity. And that's how you'll know you're not in the divine self. When the feeling of love with you is not flowing, but when it is, you'll see the power of that love in every way. Those of you who have it are truly blessed. A very joyous Easter of love to all of you. Thank you. Of course, that was Easter then. So that's the end of chapter 13. So great to be with you, talking in the group tonight. Tonight for me, I know morning for you guys, most of you, some in the afternoon. And this is so perfect a topic, as we were discussing in our group, about our necessary place in our meditations and what really we're looking to have happen. As I know I had mentioned that, as Herb talks about, more of a direct way of just, we must sit in a chair and learn to crucify the self. And he gives a better example here of really applying that in our daily activity to really see it's about seeing how Jesus crucified that Jesus personal sense of self, to see the Christ in everyone, everywhere. And that's what we do in holding that light and bearing that witness. That's what we're doing. And it is, as I had discussed in the group about that first chapter of Consciousness Unfolding is so powerful in that I dissected that chapter, like I said, for over a year, and read it backwards, forwards, sideways, upside down. It is so powerful in that, of learning that law of love. Has nothing to do with the personal sense of self. It's all God being love. He is every second, every moment, not in the human form, but it is manifested in our life in the way each of us needs it. Exactly. So awesome to share with you, and I'll send this out to a few of those that we were talking with tonight, because I think you could benefit from it. And we'll talk again on the next one. Blessings.